Hi everybody, Jane Schoenbrunn. We're here at the Saint in Asbury Park, New Jersey, also known as the Double Lunch, where our main characters have gone to have a very important conversation and see this week's double bill of bands, Sloppy Jane featuring Phoebe Bridgers and King Woman playing their hit song Psychic Wound. Come on in. I knew that I wanted to make a movie that was just completely overstuffed with beautiful music. First of all, because like music for me was as important as television or films were growing up. And I also just knew that I was like sort of playing within this lineage of like the teen angst movie.
It's the Attack of the Drain Lords. 10:30 p.m., 9:30 Central, this Saturday night on the Young Adult Network.
The Pinko Pig is like an amalgamation of a lot of different TV shows that I loved. There's definitely, I think, primarily a lot of Buffy the Vampire Slayer in there, and Buffy was an absolute obsession for me as a kid and teenager.
As teenagers, it's easier for them to find themselves in fiction than it is to find themselves in real life.
Maddie is based on myself as a kid, also the music of Cat Power, Cocteau Twins, and Team Trash, which was all albums that Jane had introduced me to as a way in to Maddie, and I really used those to find her.
That's what acting was for me growing up. It was an escape from the stuff that I was going through as a kid, and it still is. I often live inside my head.
What about you? Do you like girls?
I think that I like TV shows.
And then Helena and Lindsay, who play Isabel and Tara, are both incredible. So funny, and like the way that they sort of capture like what the 90s TV feeling is like, but they play those parts so truthfully, and like seeing them on set was so exciting for me, like as Maddie, to like meet the stars of my favorite TV show, because they do it so well.
We're trying to go for that 90s feel, and it definitely, I hope it does come across horror, but not really, kind of cheeseball, but not really.
Marco and Paulo, nasty little demons. And he's Mr. Melancholy. That's right.
One of the things that I noticed when I got the full copy of the script was that Mr. Melancholy is modeled after the moon in A Trip to the Moon, and I have a tattoo of that, which is actually, I got it because of the Tonight Tonight Smashing Pumpkins music video. Jane is also a big Smashing Pumpkins fan. It was fun to connect about that.
Kind of like a nod to both the George Méliès film A Trip to the Moon, the silent film, and the Smashing Pumpkins music video, which I was obsessed with as a kid. Music has always been a place that I've gone to hide and find comfort and find emotional texture that brings me through the world. And when you make a film, you've got picture and you've got sound, and so music obviously is a huge part of the world of the film to me.
So much of my teenage life was spent on Tumblr, just like finding new music and talking to other people that were gay and into indie rock, and it was like, I don't think I ever would have been comfortable about finding that out about myself, like in my suburban community, had there not been a ton of people on the internet being like, it's cool.
Jane is informed by a really obsessive mind that has consumed an extraordinary amount of music and film and literature, and they're very bold in the things that they want.
Yeah, we narrativize the shit out of our lives in a way that like is completely delusional, and that's just part of the human condition. Memetics, yo. Alex G, who's an incredible artist who did the score for my first film, is returning and helping me build new sound worlds that'll carry us through the movie, but we're also curating an original soundtrack of songs obliquely playing on the memory of watching 90s TV shows where there would always be bands playing at the local club in town.
I paint the ceiling black so I don't notice when my
We shot for a day at our club, which in the movie is called the Double Lunch. It's a sequence in the film that is almost like the turning point of the movie. We enter that scene in this very like beautiful and romantic, languid way, and we leave it with just this outpouring of like fury. And so getting both performances to feel different visually, to sort of feel different physically, was almost like the film transitioning itself from this very languid first half to what ends up being like, I think, a pretty devastating and horrific and brutal second half of the movie. I ended up seeing King Woman live at St. Vitus in Brooklyn, and just watching her on stage play that song, I was just like, this has to be in the movie. It's just like, if somebody doesn't capture this on 35mm, it'll be a shame.
We actually shot that on my birthday, which is really cool. It was a great way to spend my birthday. I'm a big fan of Phoebe Bridgers, and she's really cool. I hadn't heard of Sloppy Jane before, but then I got to watch them perform that day, and they've made a fan out of me.
It was so cool to shoot with Sloppy Jane and Phoebe and King Woman. You never know what it's gonna be like when you're doing like a concert scene. It's easy to like phone it in and get tired because you're singing the same song like 100 times, but Haley and Phoebe and Chris they're just incredible performers, and they brought it so hard every time. We were just like freaking out in the crowd.
Another huge influence is Gregor Araki, who made this trilogy of films that I think he calls his Teenage Apocalypse trilogy in the 90s, which is basically like the weird, gay, violent, shoegaze, alternative version of like a John Hughes movie. And seeing stuff like that just felt so comforting to me growing up.
Even though a lot of the trends from that era have been popular, it was fun getting really into the sort of granular details of the way that 90s clothes are so fun. You know, it's just finding inspiration in a lot of like fashion magazines and Delia's catalogs from that time. And the grunge aesthetic for the sort of earlier scenes, and, you know, the kind of like skater aesthetic for the later moments.
Maddie's insular space that she's almost kind of like crawling into herself in, and it's a suburban basement. And you know, her parents probably designed it originally. Within that sort of larger world, she's made her own little nest with all of these very, very esoteric 90s music posters, which Jane and I talked about. We really like scoured the earth to find these posters that are from like a show in like 1996 that actually very few people know about. It was challenging, but also fun.
I think the main thing is just these heightened colors that are almost unrealistic, unmotivated. Gus Van Sant's Elephant. I think there's a lot of hallways here, a lot of following, a lot of steady cam. There's some Ed Blackman films that I looked at too, that he uses color in a very deliberate way. I wanted to feel like you ate so much cotton candy that you're gonna vomit because it's so sweet, and then it's too sweet all of a sudden. And then there's these moments where it's sort of classically beautiful and sort of transcendent.
Caroline Polachek is kind of like a pop star for weirdos. Her songs Starburned and Unkissed, I think, is just incredibly anthemic. We were lucky enough to have the song written before we shot the film. And so when we shot the scene that it's featured in, which is a long, maybe one of the most, if not the most ambitious one shot in the movie, we were actually able to like listen to the song on set and almost choreograph this very subtle dance that the camera is doing, that Justice is doing along to the beat of the song.
You supernova.
I was also definitely thinking a lot about like my love of Donnie Darko and the music in Donnie Darko, and kind of realizing that like when that movie came out in the early 2000s, it recontextualized and sort of like brought back to the forefront like these Tears for Fears songs, or, you know, that Echo and the Bunnymen song, The Killing Moon.
There's something really nostalgic about this movie. You know, I was born in '95, so I grew up on the latter half of the 90s. But even reading the script, I saw my own youth reflected, and I think that a lot of people will see themselves.
I think the soundtrack as like a full listening experience is just something that like was very painstakingly and lovingly crafted by a lot of different artists, but that I also tried to make as this like mixtape from another dimension. I was really trying to like create something that if I had found it in a video store when I was 16, like would have been a cult classic to me.